All right, Joe Russo's my guest, conservatives4palin.com. Remember, it's the 4 is the number 4, conservatives4palin.com. Hey, did you, Joe, welcome back to the program, by the way. Did you get that picture that I emailed you?
Yeah, with the T-shirt.
Yeah,
that was great.
I'm sporting I'm sporting one of your shirts there, man, today. And
cool.
Hey, what do you think when people say Governor Palin's not qualified to be president of the United States?
Well, I think that's a false argument from the start because, first of all, she's the governor of the state, number one. If you remember when she was first announced during the campaign, the Democrats started to run against her because they realized they had a junior senator just out of the state house. She was the chief executive of the state. And if you want to get technical, she had more executive experience the first day she was the mayor of Wasilla, Alaska, than Obama ever had in his life.
But again, we go back, Joe, to this issue that we talked about before the break, and that is there's a different litmus test for Governor Palin than there is for other national candidates.
Right. It's clear. One of my favorite quotes from Ronald Reagan is, "Don't be afraid to see what you see." You know, you see this, that it's an obvious just attack on her. It's hypocritical. It's all of a sudden. Look at the Democrats' last candidate for vice president in 2004, John Edwards.
Sure. Sure.
He actually had more experience than Barack Obama did, but
yeah,
when he was running for vice president in his first, I think he was either reelected to a second term he actually didn't run for reelection in I believe North Carolina, so he could run for vice president. There was never a question about was he qualified. So now all of a sudden you have a Republican woman who is a threat to the Democrats, and the media loves the Democratic Party. So all of a sudden she's not qualified. And if you look at the history of presidents, where is this qualification at that one had and one didn't?
Is there a I don't mean to cut you off. Is there a class issue going on though, Joe? Is it because that she didn't, she wasn't brought up on the East Coast or didn't attend some East Coast Ivy League schools?
Oh yeah.
Therefore, how dare? I mean, I think this goes on. Well, the snooties. I think there's still this idea that, she didn't go to an Ivy League school and she wasn't brought up through the traditional ranks to be president. So, are you kidding me? Some lady from Wasilla that got a journalism degree from some school where who knows where, and come on.
It's definitely there. It's the Beltway mentality of if she attended the Georgetown cocktail party circuit for a year before she ran for president, I'm sure they would have no problem with her.
Right.
But and if you look back at it's always a Republican thing. Ronald Reagan from Eureka College in Illinois.
Yeah.
He can't be the president, or even it's not always a Republican thing. Harry Truman. I mean, when he was ascended to the presidency, people were scared to death because he was from a small town in Missouri. Mm-hmm. He didn't go to Harvard. So there's definitely a class, East Coast, blue blood. The Republican Party has a faction that way that they pick their own guys. Like George H.W. Bush in the 70s against Ronald Reagan. It's very similar to Governor Palin. If she ever decides to run for president, she'll face the same thing. Their guy versus the grassroots.
Well, what do you think? I have my kind of opinion about why there's such venom against this governor. And one of the issues that I've brought up is that if Governor Palin was ever elected to the presidency of the United States, that would be a total slap in the face to this feminazi movement that says, the heck with your husbands, the heck with the traditional family, the heck with being a mother, you have to throw your bra away and be in charge, and you can't, my goodness, if you're pro-life, that would just be, horrible. Yeah. To have a pro-life, more traditional woman who believes in a family and a marriage and all, that would be a total slap in the face to this rhetoric and this facade that these feminazis been building for years, right?
Right. The feminist movement, the official feminist movement now, or I think that's the name of the organization, They only seem to be concerned with the advancement of liberal women, not women.
Right.
So if Governor Palin is pro-life and has 5 children and a loving husband and a family, and she goes to work every day, but she's not liberal.
Right.
So she can't. She's not allowed to be the governor. She's not allowed to be the mayor. She's not allowed to be the president. Only liberal women are feminists.
Exactly.
So that's the problem with, and that's what surprised me so much is during the campaign. Where were the feminists then? I mean, she's a woman.
Right.
She's not. What does it matter if she's a Republican? I mean, if you have a problem with her political views, then you could debate political views. But she was getting hammered because she was a woman.
Exactly.
And they were silent. So, I don't like to speak for feminists because I'm not, obviously,
exactly. Well,
the way I viewed.
I found that to be a huge hypocrisy, and I agree with you that they should have been promoting. Here is a woman. Here's the epitome of being today's woman, is that somebody that has many children, who has a husband and all, and can be the chief executive of a state and all these things and have a political career, but because she was pro-life.
Yeah. That
really is kind of the litmus test, is because she's pro-life. Yeah. Well,
pro-life.
I'm sorry, girl, you're not in our camp. So therefore,
you're not a real feminist.
That's
because
right.
You're not pro-choice.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think? Something else that Meg Stapleton brought up here, spokesperson for the governor in Sarapak, was that the governor has to refuse this all the time. They keep telling her, "Oh, you need to be in the Beltway. You need to be attending all these parties. You need to be on this circuit." Kind of, you alluded to it earlier. And the governor, according to, the governor has rejected a lot of that. Says, "Listen, I don't need to do all that stuff. That's not the litmus test to becoming the president." Right. And I'm not saying she says she's going to run for president. That's my own comments.
Well, if you look at it, she's a Republican, obviously, a national Republican figure. The Republicans in Washington, D.C., what have they done over the last 8 years? I mean, they snipe at her from, they don't give out their name and they say bad things about her, that she can't win, blah, blah, blah. But my opinion is, why do we listen to you? Lauren Ingraham on her show yesterday brought up the comments from, I think his name is Weaver, used to work for McCain.
Okay.
About how if Sarah Palin runs for president, the GOP will get blown out. But, Mr. Weaver, who are you? You've been blown out the last 2 elections.
Right.
It would be like the Chicago Cubs trying to tell the New York Yankees, hey, I'm going to tell you how to win the World Series this year. You're not relevant. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've betrayed Republican principles in the Beltway, and they operate in the Beltway as if it's their own little world.
Yeah.
There's no other world outside the Beltway. So Ronald Reagan, many people view Governor Palin as Ronald Reagan, the second coming of Ronald Reagan. He wasn't the favorite of those people either. They didn't really like him either.
We just got about a minute and a half left here, and I wanted to ask you, people up here in Alaska, I think, are living a little bit of a vacuum. There's some of them. I don't think that people understand or realize the impact that Sarah Palin has out there in the national crowd and how much good she can do for the state when she's out. We have these critics about her going out. What would you say to Alaskans that are listening?
Well, for example, on my local talk radio Philadelphia channel, they've been running commercials for the last 3 weeks about tours and cruises of Alaska. Mm-hmm. Do you think they would have been running these commercials had Sarah Palin not arrived on the scene?
Right.
Every time she gives a speech outside the state, she talks about Alaska for like 45 minutes.
Right.
So people get interested. They say, I want to see this place.
Right.
It's beautiful. You want look at the pictures. And they produced her, so they got to be doing something right up there.
Yeah, I think she has a major impact on a lot of different things. It's interesting that people are running commercials about going to Alaska now, and because of Governor Palin, people are making money on it, and we're benefiting from it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Joe Russo's my guest here. Thank you, Joe, for calling us today and chatting with us. Conservatives for Palin. Remember, the 4 part is the number 4. They had an email in here where nobody couldn't get to the website. It's Conservatives for, the number 4 Palin. The number 4 and then Palin. ConservativesForPalin.com. Joe, thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We'll do it again in the near future. Folks, are coming right back.